Have you ever wondered whether the emptiness you feel has nothing to do with lacking a partner, and everything to do with having abandoned yourself for years? What if the loneliness you fear is actually the echo of a woman who stopped listening to her own voice in order to please everyone else? And what happens next is something you'll only understand if you stay until the end of this video. Full meaning revealed later. Quick one. If this speaks to you, subscribe to SYC Soul. Short and sweet, and we'll keep going. Carl Jung saw what most of society refuses to name. We are sold the lie that we need someone else to be complete. That lie is profitable because it keeps you searching outside for something you must first find within. What if, instead, loneliness is the doorway to your liberation? Jung said most people don't love, they cling. They use another person as a shield against their own existence. For women raised to be chosen, to be pleasing, this becomes perfected disappearance. You learn to read everyone else's feelings, and in the process, lose contact with your own. For decades you were told, a woman without a partner is incomplete. Something in you is broken. Prefer being alone rather than negotiating every detail of your life with someone else? You were taught that true love means sacrifice, adaptation, that you are only half of something greater. Nobody explained the real cost, the slow disappearance of who you truly are. How often did you change an opinion to avoid conflict? How many dreams did you push into a drawer because they didn't fit the shared life? How many parts of your essence did you hide in the name of harmony and call it maturity, call it love, while in truth, you began to vanish? Jung knew some paths require silence, solitude, and sacrifice. Not the sacrifice of yourself, but the sacrifice of fear. The fear of appearing selfish for choosing yourself. The fear of being judged for enjoying your own company more than the lukewarm safety of a comfortable relationship. The fear of discovering that you might, in fact, be enough for yourself. Right now, something may be moving inside you, a version of yourself you've been waiting for. A version that doesn't need external validation to breathe, that refuses to negotiate her essence for companionship. Do you dare to meet her? Because this is about reclaiming the woman you were before you learned to disappear. Remembering who you are when no one is watching, when you don't have to justify or smooth your edges. Stay with me. What comes next will change how you relate to yourself forever. Carl Jung warned that the greatest danger for a woman is to live only in relation to others and never in relation to herself. Think of it. How many times have you defined your worth by whether someone loves you, chooses you, validates you? But what if you are not meant to be chosen at all? What if you are meant to choose yourself? Here is where the illusion begins to crack. Loneliness, that dreaded word, may not be punishment. It may be initiation. When the noise of constant giving, pleasing, and adapting fades, you are left with silence. And in that silence, something uncomfortable happens. You hear your own voice again. At first, it may feel unbearable. Jung said most people avoid looking within because they fear what they might find. Yet loneliness, when entered fully, is not an enemy but a teacher. Let's pause and ask, why is silence so frightening? Because in silence, masks fall away. You can't pretend anymore. You can't distract yourself with another's needs or chase their approval. Instead, you face raw questions. Who am I without them? What do I want? What have I silenced within myself just to be loved? And slowly, painfully, clarity arrives. This is why Jung spoke of individuation, the process of becoming whole. It cannot happen if you are endlessly dissolving into another person's story. It begins only when you return to yourself, when you walk through loneliness not as a curse, but as a threshold. The very ache you want to escape contains the key to your freedom. Look deeper. When you stop running from loneliness, you discover something startling. You are not alone at all. Beneath the chatter of fear lies a core, steady and alive, waiting to be recognized. The self you lost has been waiting there all along. Loneliness is not the absence of love. It is the absence of distraction. And when you see it that way, solitude becomes power. But the question is, will you allow yourself to enter that doorway? Or will you run back into the arms of patterns that keep you small? Society tells you to hurry, to replace, to fix. Jung would whisper, wait, listen, stay, because only then will you discover the version of yourself that cannot be abandoned, the one who has been here all along. And this is only the beginning. What comes next will reveal how much of your life has been quietly stolen, and how to take it back. Carl Jung taught that what you deny within yourself does not disappear. It controls you from the shadows. And here lies the cruel truth. When you abandon yourself to please others, you create an inner emptiness so loud that you will cling to anyone who promises to fill it. This is why so many women remain in relationships that drain them. It is not love that binds them. It is fear. Fear of facing the silence of their own soul. But what if the silence you fear is not emptiness, but possibility? Jung would say, the parts of you you've ignored, your anger, your desires, your creativity, are not gone. They are waiting. Yet the longer you bury them, the more they erupt in distorted ways. Have you ever felt resentment rising inside you without knowing why? Or found yourself jealous, anxious, or restless, even in moments when everything looked perfect from the outside? That is your abandoned self knocking at the door, demanding to be heard. And this is why loneliness feels so unbearable, not because you lack another, but because you lack yourself. The distance you feel is the distance between you and your own soul. Jung compared it to a stranger in your house, living in the basement, unseen but very much alive. The stranger is you, the self you sacrificed for acceptance. Here is the paradox. The moment you stop running from loneliness and dare to sit with it, the stranger begins to speak. She will remind you of dreams you left behind, of boundaries you crossed against yourself, of the truth you swallowed to keep the peace. At first, her voice may sound accusing, but if you keep listening, you will realize she is not there to punish you. She is there to lead you back to yourself. And isn't that the deepest form of love? To return to the one you abandoned first, you. Jung insisted that individuation is not selfishness. It is wholeness. Only when you reclaim yourself can you give freely without disappearing. Only then can love be chosen, not clung to. So ask yourself honestly, are you living as your true self, or as the version that made you most acceptable to others? The answer may sting, but behind that sting is freedom. Stay with me, because what comes next will expose how society itself conspires to keep you from ever asking this question. Carl Jung once said, the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. And isn't that exactly why society trains you, from the very beginning, to abandon yourself? From childhood you were told to be polite, agreeable, desirable. Later you were told to be a good partner, a good wife, a good mother. Always good for someone else. Rarely were you told to be good for yourself. This is no accident. A woman who knows her own worth, who trusts her own solitude, is powerful. She cannot be easily controlled or manipulated. And so society whispers lies, that being single is shameful, that needing space is coldness, that wanting freedom makes you selfish. Each whisper pushes you further from yourself, until you are convinced that self-abandonment is love. But Jung would say, love without selfhood is not love, it is dependency. And dependency always breeds resentment. That is why so many relationships collapse, not because two people never cared, but because one or both lost themselves in the name of harmony. What is left is not intimacy, but exhaustion. Look closely at your own story. How many times have you said yes when you meant no? How many times did you stay silent when every fiber in your body wanted to speak? How many times did you accept less than you deserved because you feared being alone? These are not small compromises. These are the slow erosion of your soul. Here is where loneliness changes shape. It becomes the mirror reflecting back every place you betrayed yourself first. Painful, yes, but also the first step to freedom. Because once you see how you abandoned yourself, you cannot unsee it. You must choose. Continue the cycle, or step into your own life at last. And before we go deeper, I want to hear from you. Tell me in the comments where you are watching this from. Your voice matters here. Are you connecting with these truths? Does it feel like I'm speaking your story? If yes, let me know below, because your reflection may be the sign another woman needs to begin her own awakening. Now, prepare yourself. Because the next step is the most dangerous of all. What happens when you finally stop betraying yourself, and how the world reacts when you do. Carl Jung believed that the moment a woman reclaims herself, she becomes a force of nature. But make no mistake, the world around her rarely celebrates this. Why? Because a woman who chooses herself threatens every structure built on her obedience. When you stop abandoning yourself, people who benefited from your silence will feel exposed. They may call you selfish, difficult, even unloving. But Jung would insist, this is not cruelty. This is individuation. This is the birth of your true self. Think about it. For years, you may have adapted your words, your desires, your entire being to fit others' expectations. But the day you stop playing that role, something powerful happens. You realize you no longer need external approval to breathe. At first, it will feel terrifying, but beneath that terror lies a strange relief. You are finally free. And here is the paradox Jung revealed. Freedom always attracts resistance. People who have not faced their own shadows will try to pull you back into yours. They will tempt you with guilt, pressure you with shame, lure you with comfort. Because your awakening reminds them of everything they have denied in themselves. This is why your courage is so important. The world doesn't need more women who disappear into silence. It needs women who rise, who reclaim, who refuse to vanish. So if you are listening to this now, and something inside you is stirring, do not ignore it. That stirring is your soul remembering itself. It is the call to stop treating loneliness as punishment and start treating it as initiation. You are not waiting to be chosen. You are choosing yourself. And once you make that choice, no one can take it from you. And if these words are awakening something in you, then don't let this journey end here. Subscribe to my channel, SYC Soul. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an upcoming video. Like this one, and share it with someone who needs to hear this today. Because these truths are not meant to stay hidden. They are meant to spread. Stay close, because what comes next will show you why loneliness, far from being a curse, may actually be the secret power that no one ever told you about. Carl Jung warned that what you resist persists. And isn't that exactly what happens with loneliness? The more you try to escape it, the louder it becomes. You run into relationships, distractions, endless busyness. But late at night, when everything is quiet, there it is again, waiting. Why? Because loneliness is not here to torment you. It is here to reveal you. Jung understood that loneliness is not simply the absence of others. It is the absence of connection with yourself. That's why you can feel completely alone, even in a crowded room, or even in the arms of someone who claims to love you. It is not about who is around you. It is about who is missing within you. And until you face that missing self, no partner, no friend, no family member can fill the void. Here is the secret. Loneliness is not a punishment. It is a path. When you stop resisting it and instead lean into it, something unexpected happens. You begin to notice the parts of yourself that were silenced long ago. A passion you buried. A truth you never spoke. A boundary you always ignored. Loneliness lays them out before you, demanding you finally see them. And as painful as that is, it is also the beginning of freedom. But beware, this path is not for the faint of heart. Because once you begin to reclaim yourself, you cannot return to who you were before. You will outgrow spaces that once felt comfortable. You will lose patience with half-lived lives. You will no longer tolerate people who demand your silence. This transformation can be lonely at first, but it is a sacred loneliness, the kind that births strength. And here is the paradox. When you finally stop fearing loneliness, it loses its power over you. You no longer grasp desperately at relationships to avoid it. You no longer betray yourself to escape it. Instead, you begin to choose connections from freedom, not fear. That is the difference between dependency and love. Dependency binds you. Love chosen from wholeness liberates you. So the question is no longer, how do I avoid loneliness? The real question is, what is loneliness trying to teach me about who I really am? And what comes next will reveal why loneliness, when embraced, doesn't just heal you. It transforms you into someone unrecognizable, even to yourself. Carl Jung believed that transformation always begins in darkness. Betrayal, heartbreak, isolation, these are not detours, they are thresholds. And loneliness, though it feels like emptiness, is actually a doorway into the deepest chambers of your soul. The problem is, most people slam the door shut before they ever see what lies beyond. Think of the times you tried to escape loneliness. Perhaps you rushed into a relationship that wasn't right for you. Or maybe you numbed yourself with distractions, with endless scrolling, with work, with anything that kept you from being still. Jung would say that each time you ran, you denied yourself the very medicine your soul was offering. Because loneliness is not there to break you. It is there to break open the false self you built for survival. And what happens when the false self begins to crack? At first, panic. You may feel as though you are dissolving, as though the person you've always been is disappearing. And in a way, she is. The version of you that lived only for others, that abandoned herself to be accepted, that silenced her own truth, she cannot survive this fire. But the you who rises from the ashes will be someone entirely new, whole, rooted, untouchable. Jung described this as individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are, not who you were told to be. And individuation is never comfortable. It demands that you face your shadow, that you reclaim the parts of yourself you buried, that you stop pretending to be less than you are. It is terrifying, and yet it is the only path to freedom. Here is the paradox. The loneliness you fear is the very soil in which your strength grows. Without it, you would never meet yourself. Without it, you would keep living half asleep, repeating the same cycles, mistaking dependency for love. Loneliness strips all that away until only truth remains. So the next time you feel that ache, instead of asking, "When will this end?" ask instead, "What is being born in me right now?" Because Jung would remind you, suffering is never meaningless. It is always carrying the seeds of transformation. And what comes next will uncover the hidden gift that loneliness carries, the power to reshape not only your life, but the way you love. Carl Jung often warned that what you do not face within yourself will appear in your relationships. And this is where loneliness becomes your greatest teacher. Because when you enter solitude, you begin to see clearly the ways you once used love as escape. How many times did you accept crumbs because you feared being alone? How many times did you bend yourself into shapes that hurt just to keep someone near? Loneliness strips away those illusions and forces you to confront the truth. Real love cannot exist where self-abandonment lives. At first, this realization stings. You may look back at your past and see just how many times you gave yourself away. You may feel regret, shame, even anger at yourself. But Jung would insist, do not turn this into self-punishment. Instead, see it as awakening. You could not have known before what you know now. The shadow must be brought into the light before it can be transformed. And loneliness is the light. This is why solitude can feel like both death and rebirth. Death of illusions. Death of dependency. Death of the old self who thought she had to earn love by shrinking, but also rebirth into someone new, someone who no longer negotiates her worth, someone who does not fear silence, someone who can stand in her truth without apology. And here's the paradox. The more you make peace with loneliness, the less lonely you actually feel. Because loneliness is not the absence of others. It is the absence of yourself. Once you return to yourself, the ache begins to soften. You start to enjoy your own company. You realize that freedom, peace, and joy can exist even in solitude. And from that place, when you choose to love, it is not because you are desperate. It is because you are whole. Imagine the strength of that love. A love that does not demand your disappearance, but celebrates your presence. A love that does not chain you, but walks beside you. This kind of love is only possible after you have walked through loneliness and found yourself on the other side. So do not fear this silence. Do not run from it. Because it is here, in the quiet, that you are meeting the woman you were always meant to become. Stay with me, because what comes next will reveal how embracing this power changes not only your inner world, but every relationship in your life. Carl Jung said that the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. And that is exactly where loneliness is leading you, into radical self-acceptance. Because once you stop fearing the silence, you begin to hear your own voice. And in that voice, you discover truths you had been running from all your life. Think about it. How often did you silence your needs just to keep peace? How often did you swallow your pain so you wouldn't be abandoned? These patterns become invisible prisons, and loneliness is the key that unlocks them. Though at first, it feels like chains tightening around you. The emptiness is unbearable because it strips away the distractions. It leaves you with nothing but the truth you never dared to face. But here is the secret Jung taught. Once you face that truth, the fear dissolves. You realize you are not broken. You are not too much. You are not unlovable. You are simply meeting the self that has been waiting all along. This self does not beg to be chosen. She chooses herself. And that choice changes everything. Suddenly, you see relationships differently. You no longer mistake attachment for love. You no longer confuse possession with intimacy. You begin to demand a higher quality of connection because you have finally met yourself. And once you have tasted that wholeness, you cannot accept half measures again. This is the hidden gift of loneliness. It teaches you boundaries. It teaches you dignity. It teaches you that the right people will never fear your fullness. They will only rise to meet it. And the wrong people, they will fall away, not because you are unworthy, but because you are no longer willing to dim your light for their comfort. Yes, the shedding is painful. Yes, it can feel like loss. But Jung would remind you that this is not destruction. It is transformation. You are becoming someone stronger, clearer, more authentic than you ever imagined. And from this place, you don't just survive loneliness. You turn it into a source of power. So stay with this journey, because what comes next is the final revelation. How loneliness, once embraced, becomes the very force that sets you free. Carl Jung believed that freedom does not come from escaping suffering, but from transforming it. And loneliness, when understood, becomes the very fire that forges your freedom. What once felt like emptiness now becomes space. Space to breathe, to create, to live authentically. What once felt like exile now becomes homecoming, returning to the self you abandoned long ago. Think of the power in this shift. Instead of running from loneliness, you begin to walk with it. Instead of fearing it, you listen to it. And in listening, you discover its hidden wisdom. It tells you what wounds still ache. It shows you what patterns you must release. It whispers who you are becoming. And as you lean in, the ache begins to transform into strength. This is where Jung's teaching becomes more than theory. It becomes lived truth. You no longer see loneliness as an enemy, but as an ally. It is the guardian that pushed you back to yourself. It is the teacher that stripped away illusion. It is the force that prepared you for a deeper, truer kind of love. A love that begins with yourself and radiates outward. And here's the final paradox. Once you embrace loneliness, you are never truly alone again, because you carry yourself with you, whole and unbroken. From this place, your relationships transform. You no longer cling out of fear. You connect out of freedom. You no longer seek to be saved. You seek to share. And the love that flows from this wholeness is unshakable. So if you are in the middle of loneliness right now, do not despair. Know that you are standing in the very fire that will shape you. Trust that this silence is not punishment, but preparation. You are becoming someone your old self could never imagine. Someone freer, stronger, and more alive. That is the hidden gift of loneliness. And Jung would remind you, in all chaos, there is a cosmos. In all disorder, a secret order. So hold on. Transformation is already happening within you. If these words spoke to you, don't leave without showing support. Subscribe to my channel SYC Soul, hit the notification bell, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Let's keep growing together, because more revelations are on the way.